topic is going to be on podcasts. My name is Tom Kreuzer. We'll talk about what they are and how you can listen for free. So, how many people currently listen to a podcast or that? Does anyone currently listen to podcasts at all? That's okay. We'll show you what you might be missing. Okay.
So can I get this on my iPad?
Podcasts can be listened to on your phone, on your tablet, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, on your Alexa device, Google Home, a laptop computer. So you can listen to them on all these different devices.
And this is one of them.
Yes. Yep. Just a little background on myself. I'm known as a PC guy because I have a license plate that I put PC or got the PC guy for Minnesota on there. I am the son of John and Joan Kreuzer. My dad's in back there here at Carondelet. I worked can everybody hear me? Because I can maybe take this.
You can take it off.
I'll take it off. She said I could take it off and we've got enough distance. You're supposed to keep your masks on, but maybe it'll be a little clearer if I'm not muffled there. I worked 40 years at 3M in the information technology. Within 3M, I was involved with the 3M Personal Computing Club for 35 years. I've been an officer and I do a lot of presentations for them. So actually I reuse a lot of these presentations. I had given this podcast presentation to the 3M Personal Computing Club about 6 months ago or so. I do offer free computer help, and that's for the card. If you don't have a card, we've got cards back on there, on the table back there, and there's also a handout for today's podcast listing the information that I'm going to go over. I'm thrifty. I'm not cheap, so I always look for things that I can do as inexpensively as possible, and there's certainly a lot of things that can be done on these computers and phones and stuff like that don't cost any money or are very low cost, so I'm always looking for those. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I mentioned I'm trying to have these sessions once a month. So the next one would be coming up in September, and we have a date set, September 27th. And that topic will be on internet help and learning. So if you're looking to learn how to do something, could be basket weaving, could be something to do with the computers, could be you want to learn how to play the piano. There's all kinds of links and capabilities on the internet to help you do that, whether it's videos or classes or things like that. And again, a lot of them are free. We'll talk about how and where to find some of these classes, how to search for them, and find access to these resources. Along with my sister and brother-in-law, we put on a Fix-It clinic, and we just had one in August, and we are usually scheduling those every 2 months. So we won't have one in September, but we'll probably schedule one for October there. And we fix anything from small appliances to lamps, electronics, and things like that. So information on that will be coming out in October for that. Okay, let's get to the main topic, which is podcasts. A podcast is a digital audio file made available on the internet that you can listen to at any time you want. So it's somewhat like a radio station, but a radio station, you have to tune to a certain frequency, and you're limited to what they're currently broadcasting on that frequency at that time. So who's ever talking at that time, or that's what you're limited to. Podcasts kind of get rid of that. You can listen whenever you want, and you have access to millions of different topics or channels that you could listen to. Podcasts feature one or more people in a talk show format talking about every topic under the sun. So the range of topics is, you could name any topic you want, and there's podcasts out there for it. So everything from religion to dog training to underwater basket weaving to you name it, everything under the sun. 10 years ago, podcasts were a novelty, and there was only a handful of people that were creating podcasts. But because of the internet and all these things getting more powerful, they're now mainstream, and there's over 2 million podcasts with over 48 million episodes. So a podcast may have one or more episodes, and so there's millions and millions. You'd never be able to listen to even a fraction of the podcasts that are out there. They're a great way to pass the time or to learn something new. Whether you're commuting, working, walking, at the gym, relaxing, you can be listening to podcasts essentially anywhere you're at, as long as you have a phone or a tablet or a laptop or Alexa or these different devices. You can listen anywhere. The frequency of what to listen to is on demand. So I decide when I want to listen. It isn't that I have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning or 10 in the morning to listen to a particular talk show. I listen to it when I want. And new episodes may be released. Some of them it's daily, some of them it's weekly, some of them it's monthly, or some of them all the episodes are released all at once. So when they're released all at once, if you want to binge listen to 6 or 7 episodes of a podcast all at once, if you've got the time, you can listen to it all in one day, or you can space it out over a week or a month or as much as you want. Episodes can be received by a subscriber. So if I'm listening, I usually subscribe to the podcast that I want to listen to, and they can be received automatically on my phone or on my tablet or on my smart speaker or on my PC. And when you see the word subscriber, it's 99.9% of these are all free, so there's no cost associated with subscribing to a podcast. Okay, let's talk some more about podcasts. Some of the podcasts have millions of listeners, while others have less than 10 people that listen. And the example there I liked, I listened to Joe Souchere has a podcast, and there was a convention about 6 months ago, and he was there, and people were coming up to him and asking him questions because he has one of the more popular podcasts in the whole United States. And this woman came up and said she has a podcast, and he was asking her, and he said, well, how many people do you have? And she said, 10. And he said, oh, 10,000? And she said, no, 10 people listen to her podcast. So she's starting out at the bottom there. I don't know if she'll grow. Her podcast was on cats, and she only had 10 of her friends so far that were listening to her. Podcasts started back in the days of the iPod as an alternative to listen to music. Is anyone familiar with the iPod? Okay, a few there. That was the little devices that Apple came out with, and you could listen to music. Well, people wanted something else to listen to besides music, so the concept of listening to these talk shows or that came about. They're stored in the same format as music, so you could play them on an iPod and you can play them on all these different devices. And that's where the pod and podcast came from, is from the iPod. They put the pod in there and said, well, these are podcasts, people creating these talk shows or that to be played on an iPod. Streaming apps and podcasting services provide a convenient and integrated way to manage your personal consumption queues across all these different podcast sources and playback devices. So I mentioned I can listen to on all these different devices that I have. Well, if I want to listen on all these different devices, it sure would be nice if I can start listening to a podcast on one device and finish listening to on one of the other devices, and that it kept track of which ones I had listened to and which ones I hadn't listened to or are new. So that's where these services and things can make it nice there. If you're going to create a podcast, so let's say you want to start a podcast and you're like that woman that was talking about cats and she had 10 people that were interested, you can create a podcast for nothing. So you can, if you have a phone or that, all you need is a PC, a phone, or a tablet, and these devices usually have a microphone on there so it can record you. Once you record what you want, you can upload it to these podcast services, and then it can be made available to people all around the world, and it doesn't cost you anything to do because you already have the phone. It doesn't cost you anything to load it to these services and things like that. So you can get started for nothing. Now, some of the more popular podcasts, it can cost a lot of money because you have to pay the talented people, and they have production and add sound effects or certain things in there. So podcast, it can cost you money to create podcasts, but if you're just getting started, you can get started for nothing to create a new one.
Can you start a second? How do you get to a podcast on your computer? You could cover that.
I'll cover that, the different ways that
Do you have to download something?
yes, we'll talk about that. If I don't address it, we'll address it at the end if you have other questions, but I'll talk about how you can listen to these things and some of the options in that. Okay?
I'll wait.
Okay. Podcasts can be any length. So there isn't a standard deal that says all podcasts have to be 30 minutes or all podcasts have to be an hour. Some podcasts are just a couple of minutes and other podcasts are an hour or more. So you can have them any length whatsoever. And then I mentioned here, unlike music, most podcasts are free. So 99.9% of them are free. That it's not going to cost you anything to listen to them. Okay, here we'll start talking about how can I listen to a podcast. You can use any device, whether it's a PC, a Macintosh, a laptop, a phone, a tablet, or a smart device. Any of these devices can play a podcast. Similar to music, you can stream podcasts, and the streaming the podcast means that your device connects to the internet, and it requires a Ethernet connection or a Wi-Fi connection. You've got Wi-Fi all throughout Carondelet here, and it connects to the internet, and as you listen, it brings down the podcast or the talking that's going on. If you're going to listen to it on your phone while you're out and about outside of Carondelet there, where you're not connected to Wi-Fi, if you're streaming, you're going to be using data. If you have a data plan where you have a limited amount of data that you can download before they start charging you more money, then there's ways to download podcasts to your device so that you're not using up your data plan. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, and we'll see if people have more questions on that. But it's possible to download them to your devices so that you don't need that internet connection or use your data plan. Personally, for my phone, I have a 1 gigabyte data plan, phone plan. So I download what I listen to on my phone. That way, when I'm outside walking around, I'm not, and I'm listening to podcasts, I'm not using up data on my data plan.
Does it cost data to download?
To download, I'm in my house connected to Wi-Fi, or if you were here at Carondelet, you could download it to your phone while you're in here at Carondelet, and then when you left Carondelet or went outside Carondelet, you wouldn't be having to connect or use your data services there. But while you're in Carondelet, almost everywhere you have free Wi-Fi to use, so you don't have to download to listen there. Okay, next we'll talk about some software that you can use to help you listen to podcasts. So the number one software to listen to podcasts is called Google Podcasts. This is an app that comes standard on your Android phone. So if you have an Android phone, you already have Google Podcasts out there. But it's also available for Apple. So if you have an iPhone or iPad, you can install it on that. Also, you can get at it on most browsers and devices. So I'll be showing later how I can use this laptop and I can listen to podcasts on it. It's what I personally use, so I use Google Podcasts, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. There are no ads in the app itself. You may have ads in the podcast because the podcast may have some promotions of some businesses or some services there. The second most popular app for listening is Apple Podcasts. So that comes on your iPhone. You already have it on an iPhone and an iPad. It also does not have any ads, but it only works on Apple devices. So if you had a laptop or if you had another Android tablet and an iPhone, you couldn't use Apple Podcasts on both those. You'd have to, if you wanted something on all of them, the one thing that'll work on all of them is Google Podcasts. Apple just announced in July that they're going to create a special Apple Podcast subscriptions. These will be potentially ad-free listening, maybe give you some access to early episodes, and support some of the favorite new podcast creators. I haven't seen a cost for that, but Apple's always looking, the poor company has no money, so they're trying to sell you additional services there. So they're coming out with their service, and we'll see what they have to offer, but right now I don't have a price on that. The third most popular way to listen to podcasts is a package called Spotify. This is a very popular package if you listen to music. It's one app that combines both music and podcasts. So if you listen to music or subscribe to Spotify, that may be the package that you should use to also listen to your podcast. It has some exclusive podcasts. If you're using the free version, there's ads in it. It also does not have the capability, the free version doesn't let you download podcasts. And if you wanted to download, you'd have to pay the $10 a month to download. The fourth most popular way is through a browser, and so on a laptop or a desktop or even on some of the phones, if you want, you can use a browser. Could be Chrome, Safari, Microsoft Edge. You can use it from your computer, your phone, your tablet. The only downside of listening to it through a browser is you don't have a whole lot of features. And we'll talk about the features in a little bit that make it that you can get for playing back these podcasts and that. Okay, in addition, there's other ways to listen to podcasts because there's thousands of podcast apps out there. And I'll just mention a few of the most popular. We'll go by those quickly. Downcast, great for organizing some stuff. Also has an iCloud sync. Overcast has a few features in there. Pocket Cast, few different options in there. Stitcher Radio, and then Stitcher itself. And then TuneIn is a popular one that also supports radio broadcasts and podcasts. So let's talk about some of the features, because if you're going to use an app, it's nice to have some of these features or functions. So in addition to just playing back a podcast, there's more things that you can really do to make your listening experience better. So some of the podcasts are less ads, ad-free listening. Instead of embedded audio or on-screen ads, there may be less ads that you hear. Another feature is syncing, and this is syncing subscriptions. I mentioned listening to it, starting to listen to it on one device, on my phone, and then after I get home, maybe I want to listen to it on my home computer or on TV or another sound system. I can listen to it on other devices there. It also can keep track of your history of what you've listened to, your queue of what order to play things. If you have multiple podcasts that you listen to, what order do you want to listen to them in? And then I mentioned here, listening on multiple places or multiple devices. The other thing that these podcasts will do is they'll let you subscribe, and the subscribing usually is free to new episodes, so you can either get notifications or not get notifications, and there's no cost to subscribe, so it's not like a magazine where you have to pay a fee or something like that. This is just, I'm interested in this podcast, let me know when new episodes come out. Then there's the capability of marking an episode that you listened to it or you played it, because you don't want to listen to the same episode again, or you want it to keep track of which things you've listened to and which things you're done with, so that can be important in there. This is the option to stream a podcast, which is getting it to your device. You need a connection to the internet, whether that's a Wi-Fi connection or using your phone's data plan. All of them support streaming the podcast. Not all of them support physically downloading the podcast to your device so that you can listen without being connected to the internet. If you are going to listen to them, download it to your device. You do need to have memory on the device, enough memory to store the podcasts that you want to listen to. And then there's options usually for either automatically downloading the podcasts when there's new ones, or do you manually have to download them when you need it. So options like that. And then after you've listened to it, or you no longer decided that I don't need to listen to this episode, you usually want to remove or mark that episode as being listened to or completed. And so there's options usually in these to mark them as played there. Or in some cases, you added it to your device here, but you haven't listened to it in 30 days or 60 days, why keep it out there? It can automatically delete it off of your device, so it's not taking up space on your device. A lot of them also will give you ratings and reviews, so they'll recommend a podcast. If you liked this podcast, I think you'd like to listen to this. So if you like murder mysteries and whodunit kind of things, it'll say, here's another podcast that you might want to be interested in there. And this gets to the next point, recommendations of similar content there. Tracking the activity, showing your listening history. And the history can be handy sometimes because maybe a friend of yours asks you, did you listen to this podcast out there? And you're not quite sure if you listened to it. Well, you can go and check your history and say, oh yeah, I did listen to it a couple days ago or last week or that. So some of these will tell you your history there. Closed captions, this is like the television where you, in addition to hearing the audio, you see the typed dialogue showing up at the bottom of the screen. Well, the dialogue can show on your computer or on your phone. So if you have trouble hearing or that, the closed caption can be a way of listening to these podcasts. Okay, some other features. You can create playlists or a queue. This is a way to organize what you listen to because you may want to listen in a certain order or that. You can rearrange. Speed control. Normally, since all of these are talk show kind of things, they play back at 1x or normal speed, but most of these players will let you speed it up or slow it down. So if the person's talking too fast, you can slow it down. If the person is talking relatively slow, you can speed it up, meaning that maybe this podcast that normally would have taken an hour to listen to, if you go 2x, it's only going to take a half an hour to listen to. However, it is going to go, it is going to go fast, but if you can understand it, you can try it and speed it up or slow it down. Excuse me? Trim silence is another feature there. This is a feature that I use myself. This trim silence, since these podcasts are one or more people talking, sometimes there's dead air in between the people talking. And the trim silence will get rid of that dead air. So instead of there being a quiet time in between, you'll hear one person speaking and you'll immediately hear the response of the person. Even if they waited 5 seconds or 10 seconds to respond, you'll hear that immediately there. The advantage of that is you can listen to some of these podcasts. Let's say it's an hour podcast, you may be able to listen to it in 40 minutes or 50 minutes, less time. So you can listen to more podcasts and it takes you less time to listen there. Another feature is showing how much time is left in the episode. So some of the players will just say this is an hour in length, and so you have kind of a scale that goes from 0 to 60 minutes. So if you're partway through it, you kind of have to do the math of, okay, I'm 22 minutes into it, and there's an hour total, so that means I have 38 minutes left. Well, some of them will let you show the time left. So if you want to know how much time is it going to take me to finish this podcast, you can take a look at that. Then you have fast forwards, rewinds, and chapter navigation. And some of them will let you set how many seconds you go forward and backward, and if there's multiple chapters in the podcast, easily navigate to them. Sleep timer, you can use your device. Let's say you're using your phone and I want to go to sleep listening to it. I can say start playing this podcast, and then after 30 minutes go to sleep, turn it off. So you can go to sleep listening to a podcast there. If you have trouble hearing or the volume on your phone isn't that loud, some of them have voice or volume boost. So the sound is much greater than if you're playing music or listening to your phone. It boosts the audio there. If you have an Apple Watch, some of the apps will let you control it from the Apple Watch. So if I wanted to go forward or backward, I can click the Apple Watch and control the podcast that way. Another feature is to take and cast the audio to other devices using what's called Apple AirPlay or Google Cast. So if you have a better speaker system, or you have a TV with some nice speakers in there, sometimes you can cast and have the audio playing on the better speakers there. And then another feature is early access to some podcasts, and that can usually cost a little bit, and that's I think what Apple's going to be coming out with is some early access to a few of the podcasts there. Okay, what do I use to listen? Well, I use Google Podcasts. Comes standard, like I mentioned, on the Android devices. It can be installed on the Apple device, so I have an iPad, I use it on that, and you can use it within your browser on a tablet or a laptop. It keeps my Android, iOS, and Google Assistants, keeps all of them in sync with what's you've subscribed to and the history and what you've listened to. I have an Amazon Alexa, and the Alexa, unfortunately, is made by Amazon, and it is not synced to all of my podcasts. I can play podcasts on my Alexa, but it doesn't know about what podcasts I've already listened to or what episode I should be I'm on there. So you can do it, but it doesn't currently sync. Hopefully someone will come up with a Amazon Alexa skill which will link this stuff together. But right now there isn't any. I usually don't listen on my PC, but I could if I wanted to. If you want to listen to on your PC or all you've got is a laptop or a desktop, you can use your browser and go out to Google Podcasts. It'll show the subscriptions, what I've subscribed to, what are the current episodes, and I can do basic playback. You can also search for podcasts. It doesn't have as many features as you find on the phones and that, but you can do some things. So let's go out there right now here. So these are some podcasts that I've subscribed to. This is The Perfect Scam. It's by AARP. They go over a bunch of scams, a new one each week. Stuff You Should Know. Chris Godez and Ryan, they have a radio show, but they also have a podcast that I listen to, and then Garage Logic. And you can see different episodes and things out there, and I can play any of them. So here we've got Stuff You Should Know, How Pet Psychics Work.
There's Charles W. Chuck Bryant, that's me.
You probably can't
I've
hear
mentioned myself
too well,
already. Have I mentioned Jerry?
Yeah, I think so.
These just keep getting worse and worse, don't they?
Jerry's over there. We're all in the Christmas spirit. I think this is the last
I could have headphones
show we're
in
recording this year,
here,
right?
I could be listening, or if I'm by
Yeah.
myself.
We're ahead of the game a little bit.
Yeah.
So we can have a cushy
okay.
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So, we're hammered. Not true.
And this is the speed
yet.
there.
You got your
I want to
coffee.
speed it
I
up.
got my soda water.
La Croix.
La Croix soda water.
Yeah, my coffee is neither Spanish nor Irish nor anything like that.
No, what is Spanish coffee?
Oh, it's the better of the two.
What is it?
You get a little, well, it depends on your recipe, but you get a little bit of rum.
Okay.
You get a little bit of triple sec, or I can't remember the other name for it.
Podcasts and that, just if you have a laptop or a desktop, again, this doesn't cost anything, and that. Let's go back here. So the main way that I listen to on my phone or on my iPad tablet is that I listen to the Google Podcast app. And the podcast app has a number of tabs, and it has a home tab. So this is what the home tab looks like. You can see it's kind of similar to what we were looking at in the browser, where it has, these are podcasts that I've subscribed to. These are the new episodes that are available. So it'll list all the episodes. It'll list a little description of what it is. Also, you have how long it is. So you can see this one is 47 minutes. This is an hour and 17. This is 15 minutes. This lets me add this to my queue. So if I did want to listen to this, I can add it to my queue. So this one's in my queue. This is a little indicator of whether it's downloaded to my device. In this case, my phone. It's showing that it's downloaded to my phone. This one I haven't added to my queue, and I don't have it downloaded here. But you can do that. Another tab. Excuse me? Yeah, if you want to download it, you just click the dot there, and then it'll show a little hourglass as it downloads it there. And when it's done, then it turns green. So you can download them if since I have that limited data plan and I go out walking where I'm not connected to a Wi-Fi, I usually download the ones that I want to listen to, and I'll have them on my device. Okay. Okay, the next tab is called the Explore tab. So I click down here on Explore. The Explore tab lets you search for podcasts. So this has all kinds of categories, like 20 different categories that you can go in and see what's popular, what's trending, what are the top podcasts, what it's suggesting for you. So if you're looking for something new to listen to or that, you can go in and explore and see what other people are listening to and what's popular out there. The last tab is the activity. Within this activity tab, you have a number of kind of sub-tabs here, where this shows you what you have currently in your queue to listen to. So what I've added to my queue, these are the two that I have added here. It'll also, I can do the downloads. If I click on this downloads tab, this shows me all the different ones that I've downloaded. And you can see some of them I've completed, I've listened to, and that's why they're not showing up in my queue or that. I'm done listening to them. And then there's a history tab. This history tab is a history of what you've listened to. So again, if you want to go back and check and see whether you have listened to something, or you listened to something a week ago and you're talking to somebody and you want to recommend that they listen to this episode, you can go back and look and see, oh, what was I listening to yesterday or last week? I'll share that with a friend or that and let them know about it. And this last tab in here is what you've subscribed to. And this is where you see what podcasts you've subscribed to, and you can change some settings within there to automatically download episodes or keep track of stuff, pop up a notification whenever a new episode is available, so you can do settings there. And then at the bottom of the screen is play control, and if I click on that, that'll show me the current podcast that I'm listening to, and it has the play button and the pause. I can go forward, I can go backwards, I can set up a sleep timer, I can control that speed, and so you have all these different options that you can set for listening there. These are some other settings within Google Podcast. The trim silence I mentioned earlier, where you can skip the quiet pauses. Automatic downloading, you can tell it how many episodes to download automatically whenever there's new episodes in that. so it can keep track of that. It can remove your completed episodes either after 24 hours or 7 days or never. You can remove unfinished episodes, so if you don't listen to episodes, you downloaded it, but you've never listened to it or you didn't get around to listening to it, you can have it automatically remove or delete them after 30 days, 90 days, or never. You can get new episodes from your subscription, the notifications. You can turn that on or off. The Explore section, you can turn off if you don't want it to recommend other podcasts for you. Normally you leave it on and it'll recommend, why don't you listen to this podcast, and you can try it out there. Then the playback section, you can turn off the autoplay if you don't want it to automatically go to the next podcast in your queue. After you finish one, do you want it to start playing the next one automatically, or do you want to manually go in and find the next thing that you're going to listen to? Okay, some of the subscriptions that podcasts that I subscribe to. I subscribe to one called Stuff You Should Know, SYSK. It's hosted by Josh Clark and Chuck Bryant. They're writers for the website How Stuff Works. They cover topics like champagne, chaos theory, LSD, El Nino, true crime, Rosa Parks. There's daily episodes, and right now I think there's close to 2,000 episodes out there. So every topic under the sun, they dig in. Some of the episodes are 15 minutes, and some of the episodes are close to 2 hours. So it's a wide variety there. Another one I listen to is Crisco, Des, and Ryan. They have a radio show on KS95. This is an additional podcast that they do, and they usually have a daily episode out there. And that's usually 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. They'll do a podcast daily. Garage Logic, I like Joe Souchere. He used to be on AM 1500, no longer on the radio, but he is on the podcast. In addition to Joe, there's Chris Reavers is on, Kenny Olson, Matt McCloskey, John Haidt, and occasionally Patrick Royce is on. They have daily episodes. They also have a Monday night sports talk. They're actually, I believe, number 6 in the country in the news category. Of the 2 million podcasts that are out there, they're number 6 for the news category with the number of subscribers, because I forgot how many, 100,000 or more subscribers there. The Perfect Scam. This is stories of people who find themselves the targets of scams. It's done by AARP. They have weekly episodes, and they they'll have interviews with FBI agents and the people that were scammed and what happened and things like that, and I enjoy listening to that. As I mentioned earlier, there's 2 million different podcasts, so there's something for everyone, no matter what subject, no matter what you're looking for. These are some other popular ones that people had recommended. Murder Squad. This digs deep into unsolved murders, unidentified remains, missing people. There's weekly episodes. Get Sleepy. If you're having trouble sleeping, here's one that will help you sleep there. Relax and fall asleep. It's a combination of sleep meditations and calming stories. Dogcast Radio. It profiles different dog breeds, interviews with dog owners, breeders, and others connected with dogs, training tips from dog trainers where they'll teach you party tricks that you can teach your dog. Here's one, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. This is from NPR. So almost every radio station has podcasts that they also put out. This is one of them from NPR. It's a weekly current events quiz. Have a laugh and test your news knowledge while figuring out what's real and what they've made up. Another one from PC Club that somebody had recommended. It's called Renegades Born in the USA. This is conversations between Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen about lives, music, their love of America, and they just go into all these different topics. Again, that talk show format there. I list in here, this is a website that can be checked, 50 most popular podcasts. This is out here. But again, you really don't need this because if you do use Google Podcasts or that and do the Explore, you can go in and explore the top podcasts and these different categories, and you can find it all on your phone or tablet or laptop. This is another one from PC Magazine that lists their 96 favorite podcasts. But again, you can use your phone or explore out there and find the different podcasts too. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. If there's questions, I'll take any questions or comments there. Yes.
We have Google, whatever it is, Google Podcast. Can we play any podcast from any place?
Yes. If you have any of the players, you can get access to these 2 million different podcasts. So you can search and find any podcast that you want. Podcasts, we won't get into the mechanics, but the podcast, if I was producing a podcast and wanted to get it out, you upload it to the internet, and then it gets added to all these different servers all around the world and get made available to these different apps that you use to listen to. So you can get basically any podcast from any app, from any service there. Okay, other questions? Or if you want, what I can do too is let's do this. So I'm going to see if I can bring this. Let me go here and I'll see if we can connect my phone. Oh. Okay. So now I've connected to my phone here. So this is what my phone looks like. This is what Google Podcast looks like here. And so if I click on this and open it up, there's Google Podcast. There's the subscriptions that I have here. And if I wanted to see, what's available, this is the most current podcast in my subscription. But if I wanted to see all the podcasts of stuff you should know, I can click on it here. You can see there's 1,764 episodes. And there's episodes on how pet psychics work, much to do about something. Lazarus was there, reverse osmosis, how ketchup works. So there's Radium Girls, I think that was during World War II that handled the uranium, and how historic districts work, how Coco the gorilla who talked. So there's literally everything under the sun. And you can see the difference in length. Some of them are 56 minutes, 37 minutes. And if I wanted to listen to one of these, since I like to have them downloaded, I would click on this button here. You can see it spins here now. Depending on the connection here that I have at Carondelet here, it downloaded it. Now I can add it to my queue, and now I've added it to my queue. So you can go and search for any of these podcasts and Let's go to my activity here. This is where my queue is. There you can see the latest one. This is the one that I added here. Outdoor enthusiasm. Let's go. We can go to this one. And with any of them, you have a description of what it is, and I can start playing it.
That was brought to you by American Express Business. American Express Business offers a line of cards packed with features.
Now, some of the podcasts have ads, so this is like an ad before it starts up.
Much more to help you take your business further, because with needs like yours, you need a card designed for business, built for business by American Express.
Now, because this isn't a radio station, I can click forward. I'm skipping the commercials here.
The closest one we did was Friday.
I went 30 seconds and then 60 seconds ahead here and skipped it.
Right now, yes, I am. In a lot of dumb ways, but like really childish ways. I'm not in any way, shape, or form genuinely superstitious. But I knock wood when I say something that like invites the hubris of the gods.
So this is stuff you should know about superstitions.
What else do I do? Oh, I throw salt over my shoulder when I spill it.
Do you walk under ladders?
Yeah, I got no problem with ladders. That's just ridiculous.
Okay,
yes.
You have to know the name of the specific podcast you want to watch, or do they have things listed by categories?
They have stuff listed by category, so if we go here, so we'll go back to the phone here, and if I go to Explore here, here's all these different categories. So there's categories in here: news, culture, education, business. A little hard to navigate on here. It might be easier for me on here. You can see all these different kids and family, health and fitness, technology, arts, comedy, business, education,
Those would be things that aren't necessarily in your subscription. They would be in place for all.
It's kind of like, think of it as going to a newsstand and you've got hundreds of magazines. You can look on here. If there's something that interests you, I can listen to an episode and say, I think I want to hear more about it, or I want to hear their next one, so I'll subscribe to it. That way, it's in my reading list for me to listen to things there.
So would you just click on one of those categories? So you like
Sure. Which one would you like here? I think they probably have science. So if we click on science, here's a few of the science ones, and because there's 2 million of these podcasts, there's literally everything under the sun. So if you know that somebody said, gee, I heard about this or I heard about that, you can search for that and find it. But if you're just looking through here, I can look through here and I can say, okay, here's TED Talks, TED Radio Hour. So if I click on the TED, this is going to show me in the TED podcast, there's 150 episodes. These are the different ones here. And I can scroll through it if there's any that kind of interest me or that. I don't have to download it. Let's say I'm just kind of sampling now. I don't have to download it. I do have a connection to the Carondelet Wi-Fi, so it's not going to use my data. I can just click the play here.
Support for this NPR podcast and the following message come from Logitech, providing technology with purpose for students and educators to fuel learning, achievement, and innovation.
And even change you with different hats. I'm an engineer turned surgeon turned global healthcare strategist. Beyond her professional world, Catherine together and go scuba diving and land exploring in the Galapagos. And it's an area where there's enormous pelagic life, whales and sharks and
so you can search for anything, whether it's by category or if you like cats or that, you can search for cats. You can search for literally any topic under the sun. So if you were interested in, I'm sure there's podcasts on Stations of the Cross and because there's all kinds of religious ones that covers the spectrum from A to Z on every topic that you can imagine there.
Where would you do a search?
In this app up here, so you see right here, search, and then I don't know, well, okay, let's do that. So here's one here. We can look at the different. Here's some other ones getting into particular topics within there. And because there's 2 million of them, and because it doesn't cost me anything, I can create a podcast and I can put it out there. Now, there may only be 10 people that want to listen to it, or maybe there's 1 million people that want to listen to it.
Will it automatically show up in the search then?
Well, the search is kind of like a Google search where it's going to give you the most popular results there, but you can scroll through and you can find whatever you're looking for. And because this doesn't cost anything, you can start listening to it, and if you find that you like it, that's where you then subscribe to it, because you probably want to hear more of that, or from that person, or maybe they have multiple episodes. Let's say they're going through the books in the Bible. Maybe they broke it up into different books in the Bible, or things like that, or different sermons each week, or things like that. You can have literally everything under the sun. So there isn't a limit on the number of topics or what topics are out there, because unlike, let's say in the old days, creating a record, if you were to create music, the only way you could create music is somebody would have had to have paid the fees to produce the record, to press the record, to get it out to the stores. With the internet, you have none of that, so there's zero cost for that. So anybody can create these podcasts, and that's why you have 2 million at this point, 2 million, and probably by next year you'll probably have 4 million podcasts out there. Other questions? Yeah.
Are all free, or how do you know if you're going to get charged?
So the Google Podcast, you aren't creating an account and you aren't putting in any credit card or any information. So everything that you find there is free. There's no cost. Unlike music, there's an artist, and if you listen to a song, the artist has to get paid. If you create a podcast, you aren't going to get money from me. The way that you make money is you have advertisers that are willing to be in your podcast there. But everything is free there. Any other questions? But yeah, it's kind of fun. Like I say, a few years ago, you didn't have the podcast. Now you've got millions of them. And because you can get it on all your different devices, it really is handy. So if you can take it with you, walking or in your apartment or anywhere, whether you have a laptop or a tablet or a phone or that, you can listen to it. And if you have a Google device, you can just say, Alexa, play the podcast. And if I wanted to listen to stuff you should know, I can say, play the podcast stuff you should know. And then it'll say, the current episode is this. And if I wanted a different one, I could tell it. Otherwise, it would start playing that current episode. If I wanted it to go forward or pause, I could tell it to go forward, pause. So you have, just like playing something, music or that, you can pause it, and so you can use your Alexa device if you have one of those. Any other questions? Or yes?
So if I wanted to do this, and I have my iPad here, so this is an Apple iPad, and I want to listen to something Google, do I just open it up and then what do I do?
If you, what you have is you have an option then of what app did you want to use to listen to it, and you basically on there, I'd say you have your two options of an app. So when I was talking back here, let's see, where am I here? So you could use Google Podcast app, or you could use Apple Podcast. Yeah, now the app should already be on, the Apple Podcast would already be on your device. So you just go out to the Apple Podcast, and then you'd be able to search for podcasts, just like we were doing right here, and you can subscribe to it, or you can listen to it, or you can do whatever you want there. But you can use the Apple Podcast app or the Google Podcast. I use the Google Podcast because I listen to podcasts on my phone and on my tablet and also on my computer. That way it keeps everything in sync. But if all you're going to listen to, let's say, is on your iPad, then you can just use that. Other questions or comments? Because yeah, if you wanted to use the Google podcasts on your iPad there, then you'd go out to the Apple Play Store and you'd be downloading the Google Podcast app. There's no cost to download the Google Podcast app, but if you could use the Apple Podcast that's already on your device to listen there.
Other than being able to sync between devices, is there any advantage in having more than one app?
Well, those features that we talked about, not all those features are in every app. So if you like the features in this particular app, that's why there literally are a whole bunch of different apps that people use. Some like the features in this app, some like the features in another app. But certainly you can start out with the one that is already on your phone. Use that. It's only if you want additional capabilities that there are other apps that are available and that you can use. But if you have an iPhone or an iPad, start out with the Apple Podcast. If you have an Android device, you can start out with the Google Podcast there. Okay. Any other questions or? And because it's all free too, you can try it as much as you want. And there's again, with 2 million podcasts, there literally is something for everybody out there. And like I say, I showed a few of the podcasts that I listen to, but everybody's got different tastes. If you like sports, there's ones on the Twins, there's ones on the Vikings, there's ones on every sports team that you want, there's ones on talking about golf, there's every subject in the world is somebody is talking about it, and there's a podcast out there. And all of these are the talk show, so you won't there's no singing or songs that you're going to see in a podcast. They aren't music. It isn't like an album where you have songs or that. This is purely one or more people talking, and could be somebody trying to explain how something, or it could just be an interview with different people there. And so if you do have a laptop and you're looking for stuff, you might find it easier to search on the laptop for podcasts because you have a bigger screen and things like that. But you can use anything there. So if I go here and say stations, and that. So here's a bunch of, let's see, the episodes. There's some detail of what's out there. Now these are only 4 minutes in length, so I can listen to this. Let's do this.
The 14th station of the cross. Jesus is placed in the tomb. We adore you, O Christ, and we praise you.
Because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world.
In this love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world.
We'll stop it there, but so you can try it, and again, if it's something that you like, you'll see there's a button here that says subscribe, and the subscribe just adds it to my reading list. So you can certainly explore and listen to a whole bunch of podcasts and find the ones that you're interested in. And then a lot of the podcasts may have a link here, like this says visit website. Well, it looks like they have a website there. And so maybe there's some more information or things like that they have out on their website that you can get. So
Are all podcasts audio only?
Yes. There is no video. This isn't a YouTube. YouTube is for video and audio. But a podcast is strictly audio, and it's not songs, so it's a talk show or one or more people in a talk show format. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we've gone over our hour there, but I wanted to thank everyone for coming and hope you got a little bit of information there and can try it now, and a wide variety of things out there that you can look for and find in the podcasts. And some of the things I like to listen to are just to learn new things. That's the stuff you should know. Some of the things I just want a little entertainment, whether it's a laugh or things like that. So there's more humorous ones, there's more serious ones, there's ones that'll educate you, there's ones that'll soothe and calming and things like that. So a little bit of everything. You're welcome. Give it a try. Oh, you're welcome. And in September we'll have, the next one will be on help and searching for things on the web. So, and actually some of those techniques too would help you maybe find some podcasts too. There's some ways to do searches and to find things, because if you just use a normal search, you may find a million hits or a million websites out there, and there's ways to narrow it down and find what you need there. Okay, well, thank you for coming, and if you have any questions, I'll be around here for a little bit there.